When a family is happily taking a family portrait, a completely out-of-place boy sits behind the photographer. Disregarding the father's feelings, the mother asks the newly adopted boy to come over and take the picture together. The boy feels a bit in disbelief, but in the next second, he still carefully stands up, and after greeting the photographer, he stands beside the family members. Just like this tall boy feels the warmth of a family for the very first time, and meanwhile, his destiny will be completely rewritten because of this family. The boy is named Michael, and although he is only 16 years old, his height has already shot up to 2 meters, and his weight has even reached 300 caddies. It is not because he eats well at home. In fact, Michael has been wandering since birth because his mother is someone who went astray, causing him to be frequently separated from her, and he has never even met his father. Throughout his childhood, Michael was basically fostered at relatives' houses, being kicked around like a ball, while his mother never checked on him, and no one truly cared about the fragile heart beneath his rugged exterior. Fortunately, although Michael appears physically robust, his athletic reflexes are unexpectedly agile, prompting his uncle to recommend him to Cotton, the sports coach at a local high school. However, Michael's grades are truly abysmal, with his knowledge level stuck at that of a 6-year-old, causing every teacher at the school to give him the lowest possible scores, making him an undeniable hot potato. Everyone understands that Cotton simply has his eyes on Michael's athletic talent. Ultimately, under Cotton's strong insistence, Michael is exceptionally admitted into this school. And when the dismissal bell rings, the teacher realizes that Michael hasn't answered a single question, leaving only a drawing on his exam paper. It is a solitary boy alone on a sailboat. Michael's heart is lonely, and he yearns to have a friend, but even the younger kids are terrified of him. At this moment, a man stops Michael, bringing bad news from the police station that his father, whom he has never met, unexpectedly passed away yesterday. The man expresses his condolences, but Michael says, to make matters worse, that very night, his uncle's family starts arguing over him again. Whenever this happens, Michael knows it is time for him to leave. He catches the earliest morning bus and then hides in the corner of the gymnasium. Michael isn't there to watch the game, but because when the match ends, a lot of popcorn and drinks are left on the seats, and these serve as Michael's lunch. At the same time, he would take away all the trash. At night, Michael heads to the laundromat, using the free tap water to wash his clothes. If he gets lucky, he can sneak his clothes into someone else's washing machine when they aren't looking, because that is the only way to get them clean, since he doesn't even own a bar of soap. Michael was supposed to keep wandering like this forever, until the appearance of this family completely alters his fate.
What is he wearing? It's freezing.
Hey, Big Mike. Where you headed?
Gym.
Although Michael claims he is going to the gym, he actually walks in the exact opposite direction, making it very obvious that he is homeless tonight. Most people would choose to turn a blind eye, and Leanne used to be the same, but for some unknown reason, she simply cannot stand by and do nothing this time. And exactly as Leanne suspected, Michael is lying, as he has nowhere to go tonight and merely wants a warm place. Leanne glances back at her husband, and Sean instantly understands her intention. Leanne brings Michael back home, leaving him extremely surprised because he has never stayed in such a massive mansion before. Equally surprised is Collins, who is applying a face mask. Because the guest bedrooms are packed with clutter, Michael sleeps on the sofa for the night. Leanne shows Michael where the bathroom is, indicating that if he needs anything at all, he can come upstairs to find her. However, in the very next second, Leanne begins to feel some regret, worrying whether Michael might steal things and fearing that her valuables might be damaged. However, all her worries were unnecessary, as the next morning, only neatly folded covers were left on the sofa. Michael has tidied up perfectly without touching anything else. Leanne knows Michael is a good kid, and since it happens to be Thanksgiving today, and Michael has nowhere else to go, he is kept around to share dinner. Sean's family has an incredibly lavish spread of food, which leaves Michael feeling somewhat overwhelmed and at a loss for what to do. Collins takes the initiative to hand him a plate, but Michael only cautiously scoops a little bit of rice and secretly grabs a small bread roll when no one is looking because he is afraid of being despised for eating too much. Everyone sits in front of the TV with their food, and only Michael obediently and formally sits right at the dining table. Therefore, Leanne turns off the television. As the family members hold hands to pray, Michael cannot help but open his eyes to peek, feeling utterly in disbelief. Yesterday he was wandering the streets, but today he sits at a dining table filled with delicious food, just as if he truly has his own family. The next day, Leanne decides to take Michael to buy new clothes. because his bag only contains a half-dry, short-sleeved shirt. But such immense kindness is a bit too much for Michael to bear, so he insists he still has clothes and brings Leanne back to his own neighborhood. It turns out to be a chaotic block where everyone stares like tigers watching their prey, and Michael does not want any accidents to happen. However, things have long changed here. The mother in his memory is nowhere to be found, leaving only a seal on the door. Michael is deeply heartbroken, realizing he has been abandoned once again. He squats in the corner for a long time, and upon returning to the car, he pretends that simply no one is home today. Instantly, Leanne knows exactly what has happened, so they proceed to the nearby store anyway. The stares from the people around make Leanne feel highly uncomfortable. Michael has never shopped at a mall before, and due to his exceptionally large build, clothes that fit his size are certainly not cheap. Consequently, amidst the picking and choosing, Michael still opts for the absolute cheapest clothing. Afterward, Leanne drops the two kids off at school every single day. SJ really likes Big Mike because it gives him a great sense of security and also allows him to gain other people's attention. Leanne believes they cannot let Michael squeeze onto a tiny sofa every single night, so she can organize a room just for him. While Sean says nothing, he silently changed Michael's emergency contact at school to Sean's family just last week. Leanne smiles knowingly. Interestingly, in the school's assessments, Michael's academic scores rank at the very bottom, yet his protective instinct ranks in the top 2%. Very quickly, Leanne prepares a room for Michael and specifically buys a suitable mattress. Michael's response makes Leanne's nose tingle with emotion, and then she hastily hides outside. When the problem of food and clothing is resolved, Michael finally has the energy to study seriously, causing his grades to advance by leaps and bounds. The coach informs Michael that he is already qualified to participate in the spring football tournament, so the family decides to celebrate this occasion. While shopping, the kids cannot walk past the children's books. They remember this storybook, which Leanne used to read to them countless times during their childhood. Beautiful scenes appear time and time again in SJ and Collins's dreams, hiding dense and continuous happiness within. After the meal, as everyone prepares to leave, Michael's attention is captivated by a waiter in the store. They embrace tightly. It turns out the waiter is Michael's older brother, and they got separated when they were very young, wanting to meet again, but neither knowing where the other lived. At night, Leanne reads the storybook to the kids, while Collins also guards the door, making it seem as though Michael's arrival brings everyone back to when they were very young. That was a beautiful, carefree time. Michael's relationship with Sean's family gets better and better, and they even take a family portrait together during Thanksgiving. As the news of Leanne adopting Michael quickly spreads, the high society ladies first scoff and then gasp that Leanne must be playing the long game, wanting to use charity as a publicity stunt for Mr. Sean's stores. They even exaggeratedly claim that Michael will eat their entire family out of house and home. Even though Leanne constantly emphasizes that Michael is a good kid, they remain relentlessly unforgiving.
What will your daddy say?
Before or after he turns over in his grave? Daddy's been gone 5 years, Elaine. Make matters worse, you were at the funeral. Remember? You wore Chanel in that awful black hat.
Leanne does not need others to validate her actions, nor does she like it when people casually criticize a pitiful kid based solely on his appearance. However, Elaine says,
That's awesome for you, but what about Collins?
What about Collins?
Aren't you worried? I mean, even just a little? He's a boy, a large black boy.
Shame on you.
Leanne sees right through the true colors of these fake friends, who cannot even remember that her own father has already passed away, yet they still sit at the dining table judging others. Nevertheless, Leanne still goes back home at night and asks Collins if she feels uncomfortable around Michael. Unexpectedly, Collins ends up comforting Leanne instead, stating that she also does not want Michael to sleep on the streets and that SJ really likes Michael too. Gradually, the children all accepted Michael, a scene witnessed by Collins. However, during a chance encounter in the library, Michael does not greet Collins because he knows about the gossip circulating among their classmates, and since he does not want to bring any trouble to Collins, he sits alone in the corner. After hesitating for a brief moment, Collins directly sits right next to Michael without saying another word, causing Michael to smile secretly. To prepare for the upcoming tournament, the football team also begins their training. Coach Cotton thinks very highly of Michael, as he is taller and bigger than anyone else on the team and possesses absolute talent. It is just that Michael does not understand the rules of football at all, as he constantly wrestles his opponents to the ground, or even directly carries them on his shoulders while sprinting wildly. Sometimes, he even gets distracted by a passing balloon, making zero progress after an entire morning. This makes Cotton feel very confused, because most kids with unfortunate childhoods exhibit varying degrees of violent tendencies, especially on the field. But Michael seems to have no desire to attack anyone, and if this continues, Michael's talent will be rendered completely useless. Consequently, SJ begins a special training program for Michael, and they spend the entire summer vacation together. Whether it is long-distance running or sprinting, push-ups or sit-ups, along with various burst and endurance exercises, and even all the tactical plays related to football games, SJ makes sure not a single thing is left out. As time passes bit by bit, Michael makes slow but steady progress accompanied by his family. On this particular day, Michael suddenly brings up his desire to get a driver's license, which makes Leanne feel very puzzled.
Michael, why do you want a driver's license?
Something to carry with my name on it.
Leanne completely understands Michael's thought process, but the system shows no record of this person, which implies that Michael goes by other names. However, Michael is completely clueless about this, which gives Leanne a bold idea. So she decides to follow the official procedures to legally and formally adopt Michael. But before she can do this, she must thoroughly understand Michael's past. Leanne thinks that perhaps taking Michael to see a therapist will allow him to speak his mind freely. But Sean knows this will be absolutely useless, because what Michael excels at most is forgetting, as he almost never gets angry and does not care about what happened in the past. This is a unique ability possessed by those who are constantly hurt, as they use this method to protect themselves until they eventually lose the desire to express themselves at all. Leanne visits the relevant agency to investigate, where the papers vaguely document Michael's chaotic childhood. Michael's biological mother, Denise, leads a very messy life and even has over a dozen children, not to mention her boyfriends and husbands, making it likely that she cannot even keep track of them herself. If Leanne wants to adopt Michael, she does not need his biological mother's consent at all, as the government will grant direct permission. However, Leanne does not take this route, but rather manages to find out where Denise lives. Only after learning that Leanne harbors no malicious intent does Denise let her into the house, and she even specifically changes into a wig and new clothes to maintain her dignity as much as possible. In the past, Michael was taken away by the government countless times and was adopted by other families, but no matter where he went, Michael would always try his absolute best to return to his mother's side. Because he knows his mother is in poor health and needs someone to take care of her, it eventually led to a situation where no one else was willing to look after Michael anymore. Leanne wants Michael's birth certificate so that things will be much easier later on, but Denise is unable to answer her questions. But when she looks up again, Denise can no longer control herself, sobbing uncontrollably because she failed to fulfill her duties as a mother. After thinking for a long time, Denise finally remembers Michael's last name, though she has long forgotten what his father looks like. And this small favor is all she can offer right now. Before leaving, Leanne sits beside Denise to comfort her. Very soon, Sean's family holds a family meeting, asking Michael if he is willing to become a part of the family, and if he wants Sean and Leanne to be his legal guardians. Collins knows exactly what this means, and SJ knows it too. Everyone smiles, and only Leanne starts crying. Michael also successfully gets his driver's license as he wished, smiling extremely happily because this is the very first piece of documentation that can prove his identity. Meanwhile, Sean prepares a gift for Michael, which turns out to be an incredibly cool pickup truck. Both Michael and SJ love it very much and frequently go out for rides together, but an accident unexpectedly occurs on this particular day. A truck suddenly pulls out from an intersection, directly rear-ending the pickup truck. Fortunately, SJ only sustains some superficial wounds, which makes the rescue team feel rather bewildered. Because for a child as young as SJ, making direct contact with an expanding airbag would at best result in facial deformation, and at worst, directly snap his neck in half. But the airbag in the pickup truck instantly changed its direction right after deploying, which is exactly why SJ did not lose his life. Leanne immediately informs the family about the news, hoping that Michael will not blame himself, since when accidents strike, it is hard for anyone to avoid them. As a result, it is at this very moment that Leanne finally notices that Michael's entire arm is covered in severe bruises. It turns out that Michael immediately used his own arm to block the airbag, which perfectly showcases that protective instinct ranking in the top 2% of the state, but simultaneously serves as Michael's absolute weakness. No matter how much Coach Cotton emphasizes it, Michael simply refuses to actively attack others during football games. At this point, Leanne can finally watch this no longer. Leanne tells Michael to treat the team as his own family, meaning Michael is responsible for protecting the quarterback's blind side just like he protects Leanne. And any other teammate could be SJ, with Sean and Collins also among them. Perhaps Michael will not resort to violence, but he will absolutely protect his family. Sure enough, under Leanne's guidance, Michael no longer carries any mental burden and goes all out, remaining completely unrivaled by any opponent. Time passes quickly, and Michael welcomes the very first game of his entire life. Even after day of training, Michael's lack of game experience is obvious, as he constantly gets exploited by the opposing players, causing the score to fall behind bit by bit. Furthermore, after every single score, the opponent wildly mocks and provokes Michael, which makes him somewhat intimidated because he does not like this kind of scene. Cotton and Sean's family are all extremely anxious, but as a result, the old man in the back row keeps relentlessly talking trash at this very moment. As the score gap grows wider and wider, the team's momentum gradually weakens. The opponent even takes advantage of Michael falling down to kick his helmet right in front of the referee, which is a highly severe foul. But the referee only gave the opponent a yellow card warning and penalized Michael's team instead. At this point, Coach Cotton can finally tolerate it no longer. But Michael directly stops Coach Cotton, realizing that not only Sean's family, but also the coach and his teammates are all watching him. Therefore, Michael returns to his teammates and decides to utilize the gap tactic he studied with SJ. Before the whistle blows, Michael recalls all the past events, realizing that his family is his weakness, but simultaneously, they are even more so his armor. This time, he has no way to retreat and must give it his absolute all for them. Like a fierce beast of a flood, Michael crushes the opponent's defense line with an unstoppable posture, even pushing the guy directly out of the bounds all the way, which makes everyone exclaim in absolute astonishment. Under Michael's leadership, the team easily secures the victory of the game. Meanwhile, SJ burns the footage into CDs and mails them to football teams at various universities. Without exception, coaches from all over the country are completely blown away by Michael's strength, as everyone wants to recruit this big guy into their squad. They come to the field at the very first opportunity, witnessing Michael's badass prowess with their own eyes. Invitation letters and materials from various universities pile up like a small mountain, and the voicemail messages simply never stop. Next up, as long as his grades meet the standard, Michael has a very high hope of becoming a professional athlete. But this is also the most headache-inducing problem for Leanne, as Michael's grades consistently fall a bit short. Consequently, Leanne hires a private tutor named Miss Sue, who tutors Michael at home every single day, while he uses his remaining time to participate in games and training. During this period, university representatives constantly pay visits to their home, offering all sorts of perks in the hope that Michael will ultimately choose them. However, Michael already has enough, so most representatives understand that they simply need to keep SJ satisfied. Among them, the University of Tennessee offers the most tempting condition, promising to let SJ and Coach Cotton walk out first, and then flip the coin in front of the entire audience, which makes SJ highly satisfied. Michael's grades rise steadily, and barring any accidents, he will ultimately head to the University of Tennessee for his studies. But on this day, Miss Sue tells a story, informing Michael that the University of Tennessee is famous for its forensics program, and countless bodies are buried right beneath their football field. If Michael goes there, thousands upon thousands of spectators will cheer for him every day, which makes Michael extremely terrified. Therefore, under the witness of reporters, Michael ultimately chooses the University of Mississippi, which simultaneously happens to be Sean and Leanne's alma mater. However, Michael's essay score remains consistently failing, as he has no idea what he should write about, nor does he harbor any grand dreams. Thus, Sean also tells Michael a story, which is a bleak tale, yet even more so, an ode to sheer courage. Accompanied by his family, the once completely clueless Michael is currently reshaping his entire worldview. The teacher is also deeply moved by Michael's essay, and just like this, Michael finally graduates successfully, winning his future under the watchful eyes of his family. Sean and his wife know the University of Mississippi extremely well, and Michael is also highly looking forward to his college life. But right at this moment, an NCAA investigator named Granger shows up, and she demands to communicate with Michael entirely alone. They suspect that Sean's family harbors ulterior motives because Sean's entire family graduated from the University of Mississippi, including Miss Sue. Furthermore, Collins and SJ will also head to this university for their studies in the future, and even Michael's coach has recently been directly promoted to the University of Mississippi. According to various documents, Michael is undoubtedly a 5-star player, yet he did not choose the University of Tennessee, which has better resources, is closer to home, and is identically rated 5 stars this week, but instead went to the University of Mississippi, which is farther away and only has a 3-star athletic rating. Adding all the evidence together, the Sports Association has every reason to suspect that Sean's family adopted Michael in the first place purely to funnel talent into their alma mater. Otherwise, who would give so much to a stranger who only picked up trash? Granger's words leave Michael completely unable to answer, and he has absolutely no idea how to refute them either. Michael storms out the door in furious anger, taking everything as the absolute truth and believing that his so-called family before was all a total lie, treating him as nothing more than a mere tool. He completely refuses to listen to Leanne's explanations and leaves home entirely alone, just like this, causing even Leanne herself to start doubting whether this is actually true. The homeless Michael has no choice but to return to his old neighborhood again, only to find that the people there harbor no good intentions, constantly uttering insults directed at Collins and Leanne. This pushes Michael beyond his limits of tolerance, causing him to get into a physical brawl with the crowd. However, the room is too cramped, and Michael accidentally knocks over a baby's crib, instantly filling his ears with the piercing sound of crying. He thinks back to his own childhood, his mother, his home, and his entirely shattered early life. Simultaneously, he finally realizes clearly who are the ones truly treating him well. Leanne and Michael sit together by the side of the road, and they apologize to each other. When he was little, whenever something bad happened, Michael's mother would tell him to close his eyes and only open them again when everything was over. Therefore, whenever Michael encounters a problem, he always subconsciously chooses to escape. But from now on, he does not want to be like this anymore. Leanne respects Michael's choice, promising that no matter what happens in the future, she will always silently protect him from behind, because this is the exact meaning of a family's existence. And Michael also bravely answers Granger, stating that he will still choose the University of Mississippi, and it is absolutely not driven by any kind of profit. Because his family all went to school there, he wants to go too, making it just as simple as that. The Sports Association also has no reason to pursue the matter any further. On the first day of school, the whole family smiles extremely happily, except for Leanne, who starts crying again and hides inside the car all by herself. Thus, Michael walks up and gives this incredibly kind-hearted, yet constantly crying Onion a massive hug. The entire film features no roller coaster plot twists, nor does it have a heart-wrenching ending, leaving only pure gentleness and kindness. And what is even more remarkably precious is that this film is adapted from a true story. In reality, the real-life prototype of Michael is named Michael Oher, and with the help of Leanne and her husband, he indeed became a football star, and ultimately retired in 2016. To this day, Leanne's family still lives in Memphis, USA, with the movie reflecting reality just as if they are living inside a fairy tale. This unavoidably makes people dream back to that night many years ago, and that story they heard for the very first time. At the end of the story, the prince and the princess live happily ever after together forever, having no more worries and no longer fearing tomorrow and the future. And as for us who finish watching the story, we will also fall asleep peacefully under the care of our families, being so incredibly naive and romantic back then, believing that the ending of a story is always good and everyone can stay happy forever. The world starts revolving around us once again, with someone shielding us from the wind and rain to pave the way for our future. It is just that reality always makes us cry, as the film reveals a list at the very end, featuring a man who has a similar background to Michael and also possesses superhuman athletic talent. Regrettably, he ultimately fails to wait for the same kind of good luck as Michael. On his 21st birthday, his astonishing talent, along with his yet-to-bloom life, comes to a permanent and abrupt end. It is reality that gives birth to fairy tales, yet the beauty within those fairy tales seems as though it will never actually happen. At the very end of it all, even Michael parts ways with Leanne's family due to certain conflicts of interest. The fairy tale seems to be shattered all over the floor, as if it never existed in the first place. But are that kindness and love also completely shattered? Did they wither right after blooming? Perhaps they simply disappear temporarily and then secretly plant the seeds of love right into your heart.